Welcome to the Unitarian Universalist Church in Eugene. My name is Joanna Alexander. I'm the worship associate today. My pronouns are she and her. I am a white-haired elder woman, about middle size, and wearing a blue blouse today. Well, whoever you are, whomever you love, whatever your image of the holy, we are glad you're here. Today, we're excited to welcome our guest preacher, the Reverend Ed Conrad. Reverend Ed Conrad, he, him, his, a native of Fort Worth, Texas, fellow Texan, received a bachelor's degree in philosophy from Montana State University in 1983. He also graduated from the Unity School for Religious Studies in 1987 and was licensed and ordained as a Unity minister. Rev. Ed served as a Unity minister for more than 25 years. He's the founding minister of the Unity Columbine Spiritual Center in Boulder, Colorado, and Unity in the Heart of St. Paul, Unity in the Heart of St. Paul, right, Minnesota. Rev. Ed also served as a senior minister at Unity of the Valley in Eugene, and most recently was the executive director of the Oregon Interfaith Hub, where he remains as an advisory board member. He's the author of Heart Power, Going Deeper into the Heart of Who You Are One Day at a Time, an inspirational daily reader, and the Heart-Powered Path, 99 Daily Practices for Igniting Heart-Mind Coherence. Rev. Ed, and there's a website, heartpoweredpath.com. Rev. Ed, father of 2 and grandfather of 5, resides in Eugene with his wife Candace, who's also here, and now provides individual and group experiences designed to deepen the quality and depth of one's inner life. Welcome, Rev. Ed. If today is your first time with us, anybody your first day here, your first time here? Oh, good. Yay! I want to say we have a welcome room after the service, and I want to talk to everyone else here too. If you remember your first day here and how you may have felt lost, and you want to welcome our new people, why don't you grab a cup of coffee and head for the room in the south entrance, the south foyer, rather, over there, the welcoming room. And if you're on Zoom today, there's a link to a visitor form that's being dropped into the chat now. And one more item of business. There are these QR codes scattered around on the walls, and if you are really savvy and really cool, you have your iPhone, you can scan the code and get the order of service. Otherwise, you can ask any usher, probably toward the entry, or there's Liz. They can give you a large print copy of the order of service where you'll find the words to the hymns and anthems and who wrote them. Now, let's take a few minutes to greet our neighbors, especially those we don't know yet. Thank you, Rev. Ed, for lighting our chalice. We light our chalice, a symbol of our Unitarian Universalist faith, with words from Jennifer Pratt Walter. Ultimately, it will be the small things that unite us, how sweet this air is that we are breathing together, or how magnificent the arch of these maples shaking their papery leaves, how beautiful it is that our eyes see and our skin feels the warming sun set like treasure into the horizon day after day. How tenderly the bees tongue the flowers. How simple it could be for small acts of caring to be spread upon the bread of unity like honey made from the wild clover growing in the lawn of our hearts. And now, let's say together the words of our mission which affirm our shared purpose. Empowered by love, we transform ourselves and serve our world. We need one another. We need one another when we mourn and want comfort. We need one another when we are in trouble and are afraid. We need one another when we are in despair, in temptation, and need to be recalled to our best selves again. We need one another when we strive to accomplish some great purpose and realize we cannot do it alone. We need one another in the hour of success and when we look for someone to share triumphs. We need one another in the hour of defeat, when with encouragement we try to endure and stand again. We need one another when we come to die and seek gentle hands to prepare us for the journey. All our lives, we are in need, and others are in need of us. These words are from the hymnal and written by George Odell.
Oh, I'm just sitting with that reading, that sharing, that story about Rabbi Hillel, and just taking a deep breath around that. We're going to do some of that here together today, but I first of all want to thank Reverend Jen for inviting me to be here with you today. It's my privilege to have this opportunity just to share a piece of my life and what I've learned and what I continue to learn and what probably will forever learn as long as I'm here. So thank you for being witnesses to this today. So we're going to begin by doing something that I often do in situations like this. I'm going to invite you to enter into the silence together. And as we do that, you can close your eyes or keep your eyes open. I'm also going to ask you to, as you bring your attention to your inner life, to also bring your focus of attention to your heart. And to magnetize that attention, it's very helpful to just place a hand there or both hands over your heart. And we're just going to be together in this way, slowing your breath down, just to be together for a moment in the silence. Let's do that now. Thank you. In part, the reason why I create this opportunity to share in the silence, and even there's an element of it that's really about becoming still, that in some way all of us here together today are briefly, in that moment that we shared, which was about a minute or two, we're briefly disavowing the influence of noise. The noise that is within us, that voice inside our heads. I don't know if you have that voice inside your head that's in my head. You don't want to go there. You don't want to know what's going on inside my head. I can only imagine what might be going on in yours. But this is an opportunity to remind ourselves that it's important that we briefly disavow the influence of this noise, not only within us, but in our world. I think we can relate to that. We understand this. And this has become a required element of my personal spiritual practice in order to become, this is my way of saying it, in order to become attuned to the spiritual being within me who is having this human experience. There's a second piece that's very valuable here, just the simple piece of getting still, quiet, centered in the heart. It literally is rewiring your nervous system and establishing a baseline. We need to be doing this more and more in our lives to establish a baseline for ongoing, ever-present healing and being made whole again amidst all the noise. Life is a healing experience, and every day we're given the opportunity to simply establish a baseline for healing once again, being made whole once again every day. In Tai Chi, the ancient art of movement, of breathing, it is said, everything in heaven and earth breathes. Breath is the thread that ties creation together. Humanity, here we are, gathered together today. We're one thread, speaking of threads, in the tapestry of life on planet Earth. One thread. And this tapestry, as I think most of us would confess, is becoming more and more fragile in our communities, across our planet. But alongside this vulnerability, there is one eternal truth that remains. We are bound together. We are bound together and called to heal and strengthen this tapestry of interconnection. And what I have come to understand about UU is that this is inherent in being a Unitarian Universalist. I realized that I just recently read the 7 principles of Unitarian Universalism, and when I finished reading them, I realized that for the first time in my life, and I've lived over 7 decades, that I am a Unitarian Universalist. Hallelujah! Where have I been all my life, right? On another note, just a reminder, we are here on Kalapuya land. Just take a moment to remember and feel that truth. As I share these words of indigenous wisdom from the Suquamish Chief Seattle, we have not woven the web of life. We are but one thread within it. Whatever we do to the web, we do to ourselves. All things are bound together. All things connect. This leads me to a song that some of you may be familiar with that was written 20 years ago, and the intro to the song, written by James Taylor, called Shed a Little Light. And I'm almost tempted to sing that intro here. What do you think, huh? Oh, okay. It's kind of like life. It's always about starting on the right note, and then if you start on the wrong note, it's like, look out, yeah. Oh, water, yes. How many here are familiar with that song? Okay, a good number of you. Okay. Recognize that there are ties between us, all men and women living on the earth, ties of hope and love. sister and brotherhood, that we are bound together in our desire to see the world become a place in which our children can grow free and strong. We are bound together by the task that stands before us and the road that lies ahead. We are bound and we are bound. There is a feeling like the clenching of a fist. There's a hunger in the center of the chest. There's a passage through the darkness and the mist. And though the body sleeps, the heart will never rest. The heart will never rest. Okay? And I would expand on that today to say the heart of compassion will never rest. Or you might say the true, core true spirit of each one of us will never rest until this bond of interconnectedness that we experience today becomes our living reality in our everyday life. Yes, there are ties between us living on the earth. All of us, everyone in this sacred space here today, everyone that is joining us on Zoom today, there are ties between us. We are bound together. Let's be clear, we are bound together. And yes, there is at times the feeling like a clenching of a fist. Can you relate? And I could relate to this when I grew up. That was mentioned earlier in Fort Worth, Texas in the 1950s and 60s, as systematic humiliation of an entire race of people took place every day before my eyes. And what were the adults around me saying in response to my query about, there's something terribly wrong here? And the adults almost universally in my life growing up would say in response to that, well, that is just the way it is. Well, I've got a few words to say to that I won't speak out loud. And yes, there is a hunger in the center of the chest, the hunger to heal and repair this sacred tapestry of interconnectedness. And yes, there is a passage through the darkness and the mist, and at times it feels treacherous and uncertain. Are you with me? We need spiritual communities like this to make this passage that we're all making together. And hopefully a few of the words I share with you today will help clarify that for you. Compassio, that is the Latin for compassion. And one way of translating that would be to endure something with somebody else. And I got this wisdom and a few things I'll share here from Karen Armstrong, who was mentioned in the brief story about Rabbi Hillel before. She's a very powerful presence of wisdom, and I'm grateful for Karen. And if you haven't viewed that TED Talk that she gave 15 years ago on the Charter for Compassion, it's worth it. Or go to charterforcompassion.org. See what they're doing, the community they're building around the world around compassion. Look into your own heart, says the Golden Rule, and discover what gives you pain, and then refuse under any circumstances to inflict that pain on anyone else. Confucius said, you don't just do it when you feel like it. He's talking about refusing under any circumstances to inflict that pain on anyone else. You don't just do it when you feel like it. You do it all day, every day. In this way, you overcome the ego. In Buddhism, it is said, let us love all creatures like a mother's only child. all creatures, not just the ones we favor. It's okay if you want to take a breath wherever you want to here. You know, this is very profound teaching and truth. I'm aware of it as I stand before you today. And part of the reading that wasn't shared here, and I'll share it with you, from Karen Armstrong's talk. Rabbi Meir, who lived in the 2nd century, said that any interpretation of Scripture which leads to hatred and disdain or contempt of other people, any people whatsoever, is illegitimate. Can I get an amen on that? Amen. My mother would be proud. Unitarian Universalism, all right? I want to just take a moment here to take a look at the first 3 principles. In case you come here and you do not know what those principles are, I'm going to do a simple review here. What is the first principle of Unitarian Universalism? Does anyone here know that? If you do, just speak it out loud. Oh, this is good. All right. The inherent worth and dignity of every person. The second principle is, aha. Say that again. Justice, equity, and compassion in human relations. Well, here's what I could say about the first 2, then we're going to take a look at the third, is those 2 principles are absolute. They are absolutely essential for creating a world that works for everyone. And you could almost have that be a paraphrase for Unitarian Universalism. Creating a world that works for everyone. Then there's the third principle. Anybody? Hey, no, whoa, you got the cheat sheet over there. Okay. Okay, I'm going to just go ahead and speak it out loud. Acceptance of one another and encouragement to spiritual growth in our congregations. Now, the first half of that is basically in some way a restatement of the first 2. And it added is this encouragement to spiritual growth. In other words, spiritual growth is essential to being able to develop the capacity to be a devoted practitioner, an advocate of the first 2 principles. One must commit themselves to spiritually, from the inside, grow their life. You know, for me, for several years now, the lack of compassion that I have experienced around me and in this world has literally turned me inside out. How about you? Spiritual teacher and scientist, Greg Braden. Some of you may be familiar with Greg. In his book, Human by Design, he tells the very fascinating story of traveling to an ancient Buddhist monastery high up on the Tibetan plateau in East Central Asia, the top of the world where only a few people lived there. And he traveled there to this Buddhist monastery and had arranged a personal meeting with the abbot, who is the lama who oversees the entire monastery. So at this meeting, Greg asked him this question: what is the force that connects us with other people, our world, and all things, and holds the universe together? Okay, Greg, you covered it all right? So there was this, and Greg tells the story in his book. After a heated exchange between the abbot and the translator, because the abbot could not speak English, the room became very quiet. Everyone stopped talking. Then the abbot provided the answer to Greg by speaking one Tibetan word. Then there was silence. Then Greg asked the translator, one word, what did he say? The translator answered, compassion. Compassion. This answer teaches not only is compassion a powerful feeling that we are wired and designed to feel and express as human beings, it's also teaching us that it's so much more, that it is literally the binding force of nature. Wow. And this is very consistent with His Holiness the 14th Dalai Lama, who said compassion is the radicalism of our age. Yes. And radical, what does it mean? It means root part, that which is fundamental, that which is a basic principle of being a human being. And often that which is radical is not in the mainstream, right? Not in the mainstream. And what is it that's in the mainstream? That which is designed to consume our focus and attention. Jesus of Nazareth had something to say about this. He called this the wide road, which leads to destruction, and many go that way. We're speaking about this very thing that's taking place in our world 2,000 years later. So when our whole presence, and I want to emphasize those two words together, our whole presence is enveloped in this frequency of compassion, we become, and again this is my words, we then become the vision of what all great teachers have spoken about. We literally become children of God. Are you with me on that? And as children of God, then we are awakened to the heart of our true spirit. The marriage of the human and the divine. To complete my time with you today, I have an excerpt from a letter that was placed in this envelope on December 21st, 1943. It was addressed to my mother, who was in high school at the time. The letter was written by her father. Now, just a backstory on that is the mother and father of my mother, in other words, my grandmother and grandfather, they were separated when my mother was an infant. And my mother and her mother moved far away, 1,000 miles away from my mother's father. So they were apart and estranged for the rest of my mother's young life. The only way that there was a connection between my mother and her father was he would send her letters. And from the time, about the mid-30s to 1943, this letter was the final letter he sent to my mother. This is a man that was born in 1877. He was, old enough to be my mother's grandfather. So I'm going to share just an excerpt from this letter, which, really echoes down to me as I stand before you here today to honor my grandfather, Harold, and my mother, Patience was her given name. Make it known on all occasions that your bearing toward others, your every relation with fellow humans, is one of sympathetic understanding, full consideration, courtesy, and a zealous desire, so that mere contact with you and your presence makes a better world than it would be without you. With such an aim, combined with God's most gracious gifts, you will go far in this world. Heaps of love to you. Devotedly, Daddy. So I share this in some way in hopes that this letter, this excerpt that I read, strikes a chord for each one of us here today. Thanks to my dear mother for her love and wisdom that she shared with me, especially later in life. May this strike a chord, the resonant chord that we, I think, in some way feel in this room today, the resonant chord of your personal and spiritual legacy. What is the legacy that you are sowing in your heart and soul and in the living soil of those around you that you truly care about? What is, as my grandfather worded it, what is your bearing toward others? So in wrapping this up today, we're going to do, you could call it a meditation, but it's something quite different than what I have typically done. And I just so happens, this is one of the gifts of the World Wide Web. Thank God for the World Wide Web. I'm saying that straight out here. Now, it can be the great distraction or it can be the great integrator. You choose. It's up to you. And I found it just something came into my space. I don't know how it got there, but there was this song called A Song for All Beings, written by Jennifer Berezan, B-E-R-E-Z-A-N. And I was so taken by the song that was created. You probably witnessed it, where they have musicians and singers and from different cultures, different parts of the world, zooming in and each person doing a piece and part of the creation of the song. And I was so moved by it, and I was going, how could we do that at Unitarian Universalist Church? You know, there's no way to do it really this morning. So here's what we're going to do. We're going to do the song, but it's going to be in the spoken word, okay? No, I'm going to, as we used to do long ago in the Methodist Church far away in another land, we're going to do a call and response. All right, are you up for that? Okay. So like we did in the beginning, and I'm just going to say a phrase out loud, and then you're just going to speak it. You're going to go ahead and say it out loud, but not, you know, we're not going to get real loud with it. It's in your inner voice. Speak it out loud in response, okay? And then we'll just come quietly to the end. You'll know when that is, and that will be that. So like we did in the beginning, just prepare inwardly to be still. There's that saying in Scripture, you know, be still and know that I am God. Just that the presence of what is deeply spiritual in our life and in our world comes to us in this stillness, in this time of being together in this way. Again, it's often helpful just to connect with your heart and place your hand there. It's up to you. So we begin. Just repeat after me. I cannot turn my eyes. I cannot count the cost of all that has been broken, all that has been lost. I cannot understand the suffering that life brings. war and hate and hunger, and a million other things. When I've done all that I can, and I've tried to do my part, let sorrow be the doorway into an open heart. And the light on the hill is full of mercy. The wind in the trees, it comes to save me. The silence, it will never desert me. I long to hold the whole world in these arms. May all beings be happy. May all beings be safe. May all beings everywhere be free. And once again, may all beings be happy. May all beings be safe. May all beings everywhere be free. Bless you.
And now, as we extinguish our flame, we're going to say together our extinguishing words. We extinguish this flame, but not the light of truth, the warmth of community, or the fire of commitment. These we carry in our hearts till we are together again. Go in peace, everyone. Go in compassion.